Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Bible Summary Series. Today, we are starting in Exodus chapter 15. After the Pharaoh and his entire army were drowned in the Red Sea, Moses and the children of Israel sang a song of victory to the Lord. And in verse 20, Aaron and Moses' sister, Miriam the prophetess, took a tambourine in her hand. She led all the women as they played their tambourines and danced in celebration. Then Miriam sang, "Sing ye to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider has he thrown into the sea." So Moses led the Israelites away from the Red Sea, and they headed out into the wilderness of Shur. There they traveled for 3 days, but they couldn't find any water. And when they finally arrived at an oasis, the water was much too bitter for them to drink. So they named the place Mara, which means bitter. Then the people turned against Moses and started complaining. "What are we supposed to drink?" they demanded. Moses cried to the Lord for help, and the Lord showed him a tree. Then Moses took one of the branches and threw it into the waters, and the waters became sweet. There at Marah, the Lord made a law and a commandment for the Israelites, and he tested them to see if they would obey him. For God said, "If you will diligently listen to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases on you that I have put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that heals you." After this, the Israelites traveled to a place called Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 date palms, and they camped there beside the waters. In chapter 16, they left Elim and traveled to the wilderness of Sin, which lies between Elim and Mount Sinai, and they arrived on the 15th day of the second month after they left the land of Egypt. Once again, the entire congregation of Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron and said, "If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt. At least there we sat by the pots of meats and ate our fill of bread. But now you have brought us out into this wilderness to starve everybody to death." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Look, I will rain down bread from heaven for you, and the people are to go out each morning and gather enough for that day. In this way I will test them to see whether they will obey my instructions. On the 6th day, when they measure out what they have collected, it will be twice as much as they gathered on other days." So Moses and Aaron told all the Israelites, "In the evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumblings against him. Who are we that you should grumble against us?" Then Moses added, "The Lord will give you meat to eat in the evening, and bread to satisfy you in the morning, for he has heard your complaints against him." "And who are we?" he repeated. "You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord." Then Moses told Aaron, "Tell the Israelites, 'Come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling.'" And while Aaron was relaying these words to the Israelite community, they looked toward the desert, and there they saw the awesome glory of the Lord appear in the cloud. "I have heard the grumblings of the Israelites," the Lord said to Moses. "Now tell them, in the evening they will have meat to eat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." And sure enough, that very evening, vast numbers of quail flew in from the sky and covered the camp. And the next morning, there was a layer of dew all around the campsite. After the dew had gone, the desert was covered with thin flakes that looked like frost. When the Israelites saw it, they asked each other, "Manna," which means, "What is it?" For they didn't know what it was. Moses told them, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Pick up 2 quarts for each person you have in your tent." So the Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some little, But when they measured it all out, everyone had just enough. Those who had gathered a lot had nothing left over, and those who gathered only a little had enough. Each family had just what it needed. Then Moses told them, "No one is to keep any of it until morning." However, some of the people disobeyed Moses. They kept the food until morning, and when they woke up, they found it was full of maggots and had a terrible stench. So Moses was angry with them. After this, the people gathered the thin flakes morning by morning, and as the sun became hot in the sky, the flakes left on the ground melted. But on the sixth day, the Israelites gathered twice as much as usual, 4 quarts for each person instead of 2. Then all the leaders came to Moses and asked why there was twice as much. Moses told them, "This is what the Lord has said. Tomorrow is to be a day of complete rest, a holy Sabbath day set apart for the Lord. So bake and boil as much as you want today, and then save whatever is left and keep it until the morning." So they saved it for the 7th day, as Moses had commanded. And this time, it didn't stink or get maggots in it. "Eat it today," Moses told them, "because today is a Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will not be any." But once more, some of the people didn't listen to Moses. They went out on the 7th day to gather the flakes, but they didn't find any. This made God upset, and he said to Moses, "How long do you people refuse to keep my commands and my instructions? Look, I, the Lord, have given you the Sabbath. That is why I give you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. On the Sabbath day you must each stay in your place. Do not go out to pick up food on the 7th day." So the people finally listened, and they rested on the 7th day. And the people of Israel called the bread manna. It was white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. And Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Fill a 2-quart container with manna and keep it for the generations to come, so they can see the bread which I gave you to eat in the wilderness when I preserved you and brought you out of Egypt." So Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and fill it with 2 quarts of manna. Then place it before the Lord to preserve it for future generations." So Aaron listened, and he obeyed. Eventually, he placed it in the Ark of the Covenant, in front of the stone tablets which were inscribed with the terms of the covenant. So the Israelites ate manna for 40 years, until they arrived at the land where they would settle, and they ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. In chapter 17, the Israelites left the wilderness of sin and traveled from place to place as the Lord directed them. Then they set up camp in Rephidim. But there was no water there for the people to drink. So the people quarreled with Moses and yelled, "Give us water to drink." But Moses said, "Why are you quarreling with me? Why do you tempt the Lord and try his patience?" But the people were thirsty for water, and they complained bitterly to Moses, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to kill us, our children, and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They're almost ready to stone me." The Lord answered Moses, "Walk on ahead of the people. Take some of the elders of Israel with you, and take the staff with which you struck the Nile. Go, I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and the water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel, and water came gushing out of the rock. After this, Moses named the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites argued and tested the Lord, asking, "Is the Lord among us or not?" Then Amalek and his army came and fought against the Israelites at Rephidim. So Moses told Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites would start winning the battle. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites would start winning instead. When Moses' hands grew tired, Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on. Then they stood on each side of Moses and held up his hands so that his hands remained steady until sunset. Finally, Joshua overcame and defeated the Amalekite army with the sword. Then the Lord told Moses, "Write this on a scroll as a permanent reminder and read it aloud to Joshua, for I will completely blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." After the battle, Moses built an altar and named it Yahweh Nishi, which means "the Lord is my banner." For he said, "Because a hand was lifted against the Lord's throne, he will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation."
When the waves came crashing down, Pharaoh's might was lost and drowned. Moses raised his voice in praise to the Lord who is our strength. Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and rider thrown into the sea. Sing to the Lord, for he has made a way through the Red Sea free. From Egypt's chains he has brought us into freedom, into this glorious day. Miriam danced with tambourine, led the women in the scene, rejoicing in the victory. God's power sets his people free. Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and rider thrown into the sea. Sing to the Lord, for he has made a way through the Red Sea free. From Egypt's chains he has brought us into freedom, into this glorious day. Through the desert we will go, trusting God that his love he'll show. In the struggle faced with the water's bitter taste, the Lord makes sweet in his mercy and his grace. Bread from heaven manna falls, quail in the evening answers calls. God provides our daily bread, in his care we are led. Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and rider thrown into the sea. Sing to the Lord, for he has made a way through the Red Sea free. From Egypt's chains he has brought us into freedom, into this glorious day. May we grumble when we stray, God is patient, showing the way. Strike the rock, the water flows, in his love the blessing grows. Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and rider thrown into the sea. Sing to the Lord, for he has made a way through the Red Sea free. From Egypt's chains he has brought us into freedom, into this glorious day. Yahweh Nissi, our banner high, in his strength we'll never die. From battle's end to victory's start, God's promise lives within our heart.